If you're ever told to list some of the most famous Nigerian doctors on social media, I am very sure that Aproko doctor will be one of them. This young doctor here has helped a lot of Nigerians by dishing out very vital information to help promote health in a very relatable manner. Dr. Aproko is very funny and I am seriously his fan. Then a few days ago, Dr. Aproko shook the entire nation by announcing that he had been struggling with a brain tumor and even nearly lost his sight. But the most scary thing is that he would have lost his life too. So today, we're going to be reacting to this video that he had released on YouTube. I have dropped the link in my description section so that you can watch it yourself. But I'm doing this video to draw a point that will be vital to us, so let's start.
One thing to understand at the end of this video is that health issues can happen to you no matter where you are, including me, because for the past 3 weeks or 2 weeks, I have been fighting for my life, and I'm going to tell you the story. My name is Dr. Chinonso Egemba, also known as Aproko Doctor. It happened that on the 5th of December, I was diagnosed with a craniopharyngioma, which is a brain tumor.
Okay, let's have a crash course on what the word craniopharyngioma means. It has 17 letters, so relax. I'm going to make this very easy for you. It's a tumor that occurs in the brain. Yeah, it's simply that. I told you it's easy now, trust me. Okay, then what's a tumor? It's a mass of cells that grow abnormally. But for we to understand abnormal, we need to know what normal means. It's the same as a neoplasm. Cells don't just grow on their own. Let's just say that there are things in the body that control the activities of cell growth. And this increase could be either in size or in numbers, sometimes both. An example of cells that increase in size are like your muscle cells. They don't grow in numbers, they just get bigger. An example of cells that grow in numbers are the blood cells. Fun fact, blood cells could be abnormally bigger or smaller sometimes. Again, concerning cell growth, when it's being needed by the body, signals are being sent for the growth to start. And when the growth is not needed, signals are sent to stop. For the body to properly regulate itself, all cells die and these dead cells are being removed and when necessary, replaced by other cells. Impressive, right? So in summary, there's a signal by the body for the growth, stagnation, and death of cells. Note this, all normal cells respond to this signal. Let's liken them to a very good child that listens to his or her parents. Now that brings us back to cancer cells or tumors. They do not listen to these signals at all. That means that they keep growing on their own, uncontrollably. Let's say that they are on autopilot. So the body will talk about such rebels. Lastly, there are broadly two types of tumors. The benign tumors, which do not spread. That means that they remain where they initially started. Let's say this is a small cell, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, but remains where it started. The second types of tumor are the malignant ones, also known as cancers, and they spread. So let's say this is the lung, and there's a cancer cell there. It will keep growing uncontrollably and eventually spread to go to another organ in the body, usually closer organs like the heart. You know the heart is very close to the lungs. Then it starts growing again. It then spreads from the heart to another part of the body. This is how the cycle continues. In the course of the growth, it can damage the organs. Now we're back to craniopharyngioma, which you can see via this diagram. The arrow is pointing at the pituitary gland, also known as the master gland. When I zoom in, you can see the tumor pressing on top of the pituitary gland. Yeah, this is better. Below is the pituitary gland, and that is the optic nerve, which is responsible for vision. Now, do you understand the word craniopharyngioma? I told you now. Don't worry, this will make more sense. Further down the video, you're welcome. Okay, let's continue with the video.
And it happened that I was an MC at an event on the 1st of December with a fellow doctor. We were talking about how research in Africa had helped, pharmacy. And I was having one of the headaches rather that I've always had in this period. I just popped the analgesics, but it wasn't getting any better.
Okay, let me pause here. Notice something that he said, that he was having one of his headaches. That means he was having a constant headache, and this time around he popped. That means he took analgesics. Analgesics are painkillers. He took them, and it wasn't getting any better. I don't intend to scare people, but I've done a video that sometimes there are some seemingly harmless symptoms that might be indicative of very serious issues, and that's why you should frequent the hospital as often as possible. Let's continue.
I had also gone to the US consulate that same day thinking it was just stress, and after stress I was still having the headaches.
Okay, after stress was still having the headaches. The commonest cause of headaches is usually stress, and as a doctor your life is stressful, so we understand that. So dicey.
I went back to the hotel and I came back home. The next day I was driving to the mall and I felt that as if there was a smudge on this glass. And so I took it out, I cleaned it, but this eye just felt funny. And I took that out, cleaned it, and I drove back home. When I got home, I told my wife, I said, honey, I think there's something wrong with this eye. And the first thing she said was, God forbid.
God forbid. I remember when I first watched this clip, and when it reached that point, I didn't even know he was married. So when I reached that point, the next thing I did was to Google who he was married to, because that response, I wanted to know whether he married a doctor or not. You know, most times we like marrying each other, but I didn't marry a doctor if he's not a medical doctor. And that, God forbid, is likely to come from a non-doctor than a doctor. Although, yes, we used to say God forbid, but after that, there are usually follow-up questions. We want to know what's happening. Our minds can just fly anyhow. So a medical doctor hearing this kind of complaint will further ask.
I was like, okay, amen, it's fine. And I went out.
Yeah, he went out and was preparing for the next event. His own response was quite different altogether. The God forbid, okay, it can be like that. So please don't get offended if we seem not to be really faithy per se.
Preparing for the next event. When I got to the next event on December 3rd, that was my mom's birthday. I was supposed to talk to people about how to live healthy and exercise, you know, basically, because that's what I do. And while I was waiting for the event to kick off, before I speak, I still had this feeling in this eye. And so I went to the top view of the field and I kept trying to, you know, check myself as a doctor. And I closed this eye. And as I closed this eye, I realized that I couldn't see.
Wow. Wow. You know, that's the danger with paired organs. Like, paired organs means they come into, like, your eyes are paired organs, your ear, your mouth is just one. So the lungs and the kidneys are paired organs. Most times, especially with the eye that's centralized, it's easy for you to miss when one eye is having a problem compared to other organs like the ears, because they're distant. If one has a problem, you might notice that you pick sounds better from a particular side than the other side, unlike the eyes that somehow they overlap. So his medical knowledge really came into play here to see. And when I was in Nigeria in ophthalmology, when you come with a problem, the first test we do for you is your visual acuity. We want to see whether your eyes are really working well, whether they are seeing objects as well as they should. If you're having any form of eye problem, pain or so, the next thing you should try to do is see whether you're seeing properly with the eye. So you close the better eye per se and try out that. It's
out of this eye. Now it's funny, but then it was not.
It can be.
And I called my ophthalmologist. I told him that, look, I can't see out of this eye. I think I have a glaucoma. He was like, okay, that he would need to check my eye pressure, but he's not in the country. It's like, okay, what do? Do I get drugs or something? he was like, okay, but he doesn't want to send me the drugs until he checks the eye pressure first. So I went to do an MRI.
Yeah, that's a good doctor. That's a very good doctor. And this is what we keep telling you guys. Don't really pressurize us to diagnose and prescribe for you over the phone. A good doctor will want to see you and assess that. Glaucoma is an eye condition that is responsible for painless gradual loss of vision. So he is right to suspect that, but there are ways you go about it before you're able to establish the diagnosis of glaucoma. And because it's a serious condition, you wouldn't just want to start prescribing eye drops for the person without being sure of it. Since it's not really an emergency per se, could wait, or if it was really serious, the Aproko doctor will have told him, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and he will likely recommend that he sees another person. Even the doctors, we obey that kind of rule with our knowledge too. Don't ask us to prescribe drugs for you over the phone, please.
I went to do an MRI, and while I was doing an MRI, while I was still in the machine, the radiographer said that he thought he saw something, but that he needed to inject a contrast in my vein and find out what was going on.
Wow.
I knew there was a problem.
Wow. Okay. An MRI is a form of imaging, like an X-ray. Yes, but it's like a more advanced form of X-ray. It's a good imaging for the brain, depending on the condition you have. And it's a bit pricey in Nigeria. Even the middle income citizens will have to really, draw something before they can afford it. Talk more of majority of the populace that cannot even afford it. So it's a bit pricey. Apart from that, it's not really readily available too. But he could afford it, and he had the right connections to be able to do that quickly. And a radiographer is different from a radiologist. People should know that a radiologist is a medical doctor that had trained in radiology. The radiographers too are professionals that train. But when it comes to diagnosis and the rest, it will really be the radiologist that will make a kind of diagnosis. When you go in for a procedure and you hear that we're going to put a contrast is like a fluid that adds more details to, that's the best I can do, add more details to whichever structure they want to see. The contrast will make it obvious.
He did it, and the radiologist was not around. But when the radiologist came, he said he thought that it was an aneurysm. An aneurysm is a swollen blood vessel, by the way. And when he told me that, I was very worried. And while in the car, I was crying. I was crying because I had asked myself, why me? And while I was crying, I could feel the pressure increasing in my head. And so I had to stop crying. Not because I was done with my emotions, but because if I had continued crying, I felt it would have burst. But I needed the results to come out in my hand before I know that it's an aneurysm. So I waited.
Okay, before we go far, I wanted to talk about that. Breaking bad news. I will do a video about that. Breaking bad news is really a difficult thing for almost every doctor to do. And imagine how you've been living breaking bad news, and it comes to a point that you are the one receiving the bad news yourself. And most times, maybe when we break bad news to patients, they tend to know the severity from what we tell them. However, we as health practitioners already know the severity. So there's really nothing you can tell us to reassure us and be like this. We already know. And this is part of the reason we're really scared. And wow. He couldn't hold back the tears. I can't imagine. In fact, I can't even imagine. And wow. He was waiting for the results too. Let's continue. I hope I can finish this video.
So I waited till Monday By Monday, the moment the results came out, I took myself to the hospital, or rather, my wife took me to the hospital. And when she took me to the hospital, I paid for the emergency room immediately. I didn't wait to go see the, neurosurgeon, clinic, and all that, because in my head it was an emergency. I hadn't seen the results. And so, the reason I had not seen the results was because I refused to look at the film. It is easy I have diagnosed other people with brain tumors, aneurysms, but it is not easy for you to do that to yourself. And the results came out.
At that point in time, I think from what he's saying, he wasn't sure of the diagnosis, and an aneurysm is a very serious condition. It's like a weakening of your blood vessels. An aneurysm could occur anywhere where there's blood vessel, and in the brain, an aneurysm is not what you would want to happen to you. Anyway, it's not even a good thing at all. But the bad thing about the brain is that as it gets swollen, it gets weak, and it could easily tear. Let me use that in English. Tear. We call it rupture. But when it ruptures, the blood just leaks into the brain. And that is not good at all. It's not good. Blood and brain are not friends. It's a serious problem. So apart from that, you lose blood too, and it's usually a very fatal condition.
Wife gave me the results. I looked at it, and they said on the 5th of December that I had a tumor sitting in my head. Let me tell you where it was sitting. It was sitting, if you draw a line here, in, and you draw another line here, in, at the point where they meet, directly in the middle of my brain, around my pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is the master gland. The master gland is the gland that controls almost everything in your body, from your sex, to your water, to your stress, to almost everything. And it was around it. It was also sitting on the optic nerve around this eye, and was also affecting this eye, to the point where this eye, I couldn't see with it, and it was also closing. It was so bad that I couldn't read out of my phone.
Yeah. So, not to burden you with our jargons. Wow. But that explains why he was having the difficulty in seeing and the constant headaches too. Because the tumor likely would be growing. And as it's growing, it's compressing or pressing surrounding structures, part of the brain, the pituitary gland, the optic nerve, and all the surrounding structures like that, and to be causing problems. Wow.
Anymore. I had to use my tablet, which was bigger, and I increased the size of the font on my screen. So I also, and when they did that, they said, okay, it's a craniopharyngioma and we need to do a surgery to remove it. And I started laughing. I was laughing because I could remember the exact time in class, or as a medical student, where they were teaching us the points of a craniopharyngioma and how it can affect your vision. And this was it happening to me. While I was being driven home, I was called by Dr. Onya. Dr. Onya is a neurosurgeon in Lagun Hospital, Lagos, Ikoyi. But before that, I had given my film, my results, to Dr. Nini Lowo. Nini Lowo is an interventional radiologist, because at that point I was still thinking it was, not a tumor yet, before then. And so I had sent it to him. Immediately he sent the film to Dr. Tayo Ojo. Apparently Dr. Tayo and Dr. Onya worked together in the same hospital.
Yeah, Dr. Tayo and Dr. Onya worked together. I don't know these doctors, please. Well, much. I don't know them. And it can be a small world. It really can be a small world.
And so Dr. Onya said I should come to the hospital the next day, the same day that, based on the story he had heard, because some of my other colleagues, NECA for instance, Dr. Prosper, had already told him what was happening to me.
So he's mentioning a lot of doctors. That's how we are. When one of our colleagues is down, they would understand why all of them are flocking around him, especially for a condition this serious.
And so he said that it could be a pituitary apoplexy, rather, where there is sudden bleeding into a tumor cyst. And so we drove back to the hospital and we were admitted immediately.
Craniopharyngioma is a brain tumor. Largely, in most cases, it is benign. It's a tumor that is somewhere between the pituitary gland and the base of the brain. The site of the lesion of the tumor is quite strategic because of structures around the tumor. The optic nerve that we used to see, the pituitary gland that controls everything in the body, the hypothalamus or pituitary stalk behind it. Suffice to say that it's a small tumor that could be very big, but in a very strategic place. Case, the complications will range from infection, which is very treatable, to death, and everything in between, meaning the blindness could be forever. It is also possible that the vessels around the tumor could be injured, and if that happens, there will be stroke. And if the injury is much, it could lead to death.
The disease is serious. The surgery is also serious. It's just that you must operate. But it's a very risky surgery and it has to be by competent hands to do it. Even the surgery on its own could have, that's what the doctor was mentioning, could have complications that could be as minor as just an infection to as serious as death. Aproko doctor knows that. He knows the implication of the surgery too, and is fearful. It is.
And so they had some time to really evaluate those images and find out that it wasn't a pituitary apoplexy. That I needed to do some hormonal profile tests. They needed to check all the hormones in my body that is being produced by the pituitary gland, and then, find out if it was okay.
It's usually important for medical legal reasons to do that. If you want to operate on an organ, especially very important organ, you'd want to do a test to make sure it's okay first before you do the surgery. Because after the surgery, even if the surgery goes well and you don't do that, let me give you this picture. Let's assume he wanted to do the surgery to remove not even assumption. He did the surgery to remove the tumor. If, unfortunately, before the surgery, there were some damages to the pituitary gland, and then he does the surgery, and because there are damages to the pituitary gland, the symptoms persist, it's easy for the patient to tie it down to the surgery. And that's why it's important that you do a baseline test first to establish that the organ you're about to operate on is doing well. And then if after that there are problems, it's obvious that the complications are from the surgery. But many times you might just jump in as a surgeon, as a doctor, to just operate, and it might be that there had been complications before you operated and your surgery went well, but because you've not been able to establish that, the patients will pin it down on the surgery. This happens with uterine surgeries, all these kind of surgeries they do on the womb. Maybe some people already have issues with the womb, but because a doctor fails to establish that, it's easy to tie it down, especially when the person starts having fertility issues. They will tie it down to the surgery too. Some eye surgeries too, the same thing. They want to establish that you're okay before you do the surgery and your eyes are okay, so that after the surgery, it wouldn't be that you are blaming the surgeon who did his or her work well. And when you're doing it for a medical doctor, we'll ask, but you do it for everybody, Sha.
I needed to go back home. And then going back home, coming back to my house, knowing that I had a surgery to go for in my brain wasn't easy. This happened between the 5th and the 18th of December. At that same period, I had videos to shoot for Aproko Doctor. Thankfully, I was still able to shoot the videos that you saw during the whole of December till the 31st. And at some point, I continued shooting till I couldn't shoot anymore. The reason I couldn't shoot anymore was I couldn't read. I couldn't see my phone. I couldn't see my tablet. This light on my face was affecting my eyesight, and I couldn't shoot without the light. So we had to disappoint some brands. We had to, talk to some people and say we couldn't shoot their videos because of what was happening to me.
There's passion. There's someone that is passionate about his job. So he shocked all of us. Like, he shocked the entire Nigerian community and other people outside Nigeria that follow him. People didn't know. All of a sudden, he just announced that he had been fighting for his life because people had kept on seeing his videos, and that's passion. And this is why I created this channel, for you to see that most doctors are genuinely passionate about their jobs. Most. There are some that aren't, and sometimes might be loud, bad news sell and the rest, but most doctors are really passionate about their jobs, and this further establishes that.
At some point, there were people that really cared about me, that prayed for me. Some people cried as they prayed. This was one of the most trying periods in my life. I am not going to lie. I was supposed to talk to my team members. We were supposed to have a party. I was supposed to, give bonuses. We were supposed to do Secret Santa, planned so many things. December 2022 was going to be good because it was a good year. And here was I looking at a tumor in my head.
Yeah. Medicine is a hard job. It is. And it makes you see the green parts of life. You see patients walking, people that had plans, people that are full of life, and something unexpected happens, and that's all. It just changes for them forever. And that's it. He was planning his life too, and all of a sudden a serious diagnosis came in, and that's life. This is what we go through. We see a lot of people with these stories, people like us, and wow. No comment.
One of the tests that we're supposed to do, the hormonal test, that's the ACTH, was not done anywhere in Nigeria. And so they took the test and sent it all the way to two countries, South Africa and Germany.
Oh.
I took my own personal test because I felt that the test that the hospital took was wasting time. So I went to SynLab, begged the CEO, and he said that he was going to, fast forward it. And they sent it to Germany.
Wow.
And I can only imagine how many people who really need these tests that have to wait for 2 weeks for the results to come out.
Exactly. Like, obviously, if you look at what has happened to him, he could easily afford it because he is financially in the right place to do that. And he also has a lot of people that could help facilitate that. And just look at the average Nigerian, the average person that cannot even afford this. And this thing could happen to anybody. It could. And a lot of people just die quietly with these things. Not because they don't want to get better, but because they can't afford these services. This is why things should work. This is why things should work. It's depressing.
And then the weekend of the surgery, we were supposed to have the surgery, and then the doctor came that Sunday. And while he came that Sunday, he told me that the brain tumor completely covered the pituitary stalk. And so it wasn't going to be really easy to, just take it out. Initially, they had wanted to go through my nose to get the tumor out. But then, because of the position of the tumor and then the height, if it was way lower, they would have just gone through the nose and just taken it out. But because of the height and how risky it was at that point, they said that they needed to go through the skull. So this is the line now. They had to open the skull, take out a piece. They had to take out a piece of the skull completely, go through the brain so that they can have enough real estate to see and then really do what they needed to do.
His funny side is still coming out despite this. Yeah. This man is really brave. He's very courageous. So for surgeries like that, for cosmetics, let me use the English, for cosmetic reasons and for the ease of the surgery, it's easier to go through the nose. There's a link between the nose and where the pituitary gland is, directly under the nose. And when you do it, obviously the scar won't be there, unlike him now having a very huge scar on the side of his head. Because of that, he has hair, so it will grow and cover that part.
I was literally shaking. I was vibrating. I was sweating. I wanted to vomit. It felt like my whole life had ended. I eat salads that my younger brother calls me a goat because that's the only thing I eat. Rice, I don't eat bread, I don't take soda, I don't take energy drinks. Healthy life. And here was me fighting or pushing after advocating for healthy lives as much as I can with a tumor in my head. At that same time, there were times that people's tweets came at me, and all I could remember was someone that said, if I don't live long, after all this advice, that it would be a real mess. And I was really sad.
And that's another grim thing about life. Generally, there are risk factors to a lot of diseases. Things that you do that will make your chances of coming down with the disease to be higher. But at the same time, there are some things that happen to people that there's no direct link to it. There are people that live healthily, have been the best forms of shape or whatsoever. The English is hard, and all of a sudden, like when you hear about athletes that just collapse and die, some of them are in the best shapes of their lives, and this happens. So this is something about life that we just cannot explain. And it saddens us that even when you're trying to live healthily, I'm trying to make a lot of resolutions. I have cut down soda. I love bread. I love bread. But I have to cut down that too and start taking more of water, fruits and vegetables. In Nigeria, it's easy for you to get these things. Here, it's so easy for you to get junks. Eating healthy is more expensive and not even easily accessible like that. But even with that, just live healthy, please do. It doesn't mean that you use this as a reason and be like, hey, even Aproko doctor, look at what he's doing and this has happened to him. What's the point? We're all gonna die. Something like that. No. Just play your own part to see that you live healthily.
We're able to do most of the neurosurgical procedures that most of our Nigerian patients travel out of Nigeria for. Most of those things are available and are possible, as we've rightly alluded to. Brain tumor surgeries, pediatric neurosurgical procedures, like in babies that have hydrocephalus, and in fact a wide variety other problems, aneurysm surgeries.
That's impressive.
These are complex surgeries that that weren't as possible as they are currently, say probably 25 years ago, 20 years ago. But now, the expertise is there. We have more equipment, operating microscope that wasn't really available here in Nigeria. They're available now, at least in some key hospitals. Even here in Lagoon, the operating microscope that we have is one of the latest brands, okay, from the key microscope maker in the world, and that's Carl Zeiss.
Wow.
So that's like state-of-the-art microscope with excellent magnification, good lighting, and most of the aspects or most of the facilities that a very good microscope is expected to have. All those things are available in Nigeria now.
Immediately,
That's good. That's really good. I remember there was a time a friend asked me if I knew where they do a particular test, and I wanted to say, you sure say you did Nigeria? And I was like, okay, calm down, ask around. And I realized that they do that test in Lagos. That was it. You see, Lagos, this is really impressive. A lot of things are happening, and with this kind of things, it's easy for someone to just go abroad where the state of the art facilities are. But we're really glad that some of these things are now available in Nigeria, and they're good hands. Nigerians have good doctors. See, I'm telling you this, Nigerians, you like looking down your people. Nigerians have one of the best doctors like in the world. Nigerians are doing well. Even those in Nigeria are doing well. Like people that, oh God, let's just leave that aside. But the problem is that most of these things are expensive again. And yeah, he could afford it. But you ask others, would they be able to? And it's obviously a private hospital. Scarcely do you see these things in the government hospitals. Even if you see some of them, they are just outdated stuffs. We hope things get better.
immediately after the surgery, I came out of the theater and I was very cold. And so they warmed me up. I knew I was in the ICU. I asked them to get my wife. And when they got my wife, the moment she came in, I said, today's the 18th of December, right? She said, yes. I was like, who won the World Cup? Said Messi. I said, Messi, my goat. Because because I had been waiting for Messi to win the World Cup. It was a good thing that I could remember that.
Yeah.
It was a good thing I was alive. It's a good thing I'm alive today. So to be honest, there were people who asked me why I did the surgery in Nigeria. And
Okay.
at some point, I had no answer for them because I just knew that I think we have good hands here.
Yeah, we do.
And it wasn't necessarily the funds. I think it was more about trust. I did not trust the foreign doctors that I was going to see, but I knew that we could do it here. Another thing that also helped me was the support system I had. My friends, my family, my wife. Even from the very beginning, before the whole surgery thing came up, there were people that were not even in Lagos with me. For example, pharmacist Neka all the way in Port Harcourt that, try to get as many ophthalmologists as possible to, get to see me and all that. And I want to say I'm thankful, to everybody. I would not have come out of this without their support. And if you're watching this, please try to get a support system. No matter how highly placed you are or how wealthy you are, without a support system, I don't think you're going to do much. There is a particular saying that there are a couple of things that concern you. One of them is economy, another thing is health. Whether or not you like them or you don't, they are going to affect you in one way or the other.
Yes. They are going to definitely affect you. There's this popular saying that health is wealth. If you're healthy, you have no idea. Because when you walk into the hospital and realize how much people struggle to be able to do some of the things you do, even embarrassing things, the patients that were happy that they're able to defecate. This is something that is embarrassing to someone, or urinate, this kind of things. There are things that people would wish they can do. There are people that cannot feed, even if it's nonsense food, they cannot eat at all. So health is really wealth, and prevention is better than cure. So please, I beg us that you might not have the money, but for this health that you have, be grateful. Even if you are being diagnosed with a particular condition, there are people in way worse situations that wish that being in your state would even be where they are. Your current state is someone's prayer. Then another thing about support system is you need that. You need that. No man is an island. I am someone that I know that where I am currently is as a result of knowing a lot of people that have really played their parts to contribute towards where I am. And I value these people and will do everything within my power to keep these good people. So please don't even be consumed by, hey, I'm going to make it, I don't care, and the rest. People, real people, are more valuable than money. I say this usually that with the right people, you use 20,000 naira, I'm using naira, Nigerian currency, to do something that could have cost you 2 million. But with the wrong people, you use 2 million to do something that would have cost you 20,000 naira. So yes, value friendship, value relationships. This man benefited definitely from the strong network he has. Let's continue.
For example, the brain tumor I had no known causes, had no known prevention. So it wasn't because I was smoking cigarettes or smoking shisha, or I was, drinking, alcohol or something. It just had no known cause, there was nothing. It's not because I'm black, it's not because I'm young, it's not because I'm old. Yeah. It's not because I'm, stressed or, whatever. It just happened, and we will soon find out why. That's one of the reasons we started the 100K Club. The 100K Club was started in 2020 to help people who couldn't pay for their health bills. I think we haven't slowed down, but, donations have reduced. So if you're watching this and you feel that you want to help people, there's a link in the caption below or in the link somewhere around this video that you could easily pay for.
So I initially in doing this video wanted to cut this part out, but then what's the purpose? I am dropping the link to this video in the description section, and then you could use it to access the main video and also get the link in which you can donate if you've been led to do so, because it's obvious that a lot of people wouldn't be able to access this, so your donation would help. Thank you.
And help someone out there. This is 2023, and as long as I'm alive, you guys will continue to hear from me. So put your belts tight, because I will continue to speak. And do not think that this whole thing that happened to me is going to slow me down one bit. It didn't, it will not, and it couldn't. And make sure you remain healthy.
Yeah. So that's all for the video. I don't have anything further to say. I hope you've learned something. I have to. And it's well.